any type of mandatory mandates or vaccines. So far, everybody's doing, I guess, what they think they should be doing and keeping the community safe. The numbers are still low. Right now, the schools are in session. That's a good thing. And the schools are taking precautionary measures. And as long as everybody's doing their fair share, I think we'd be in great shape. So right now, we are following the recommendations of the CDC guidelines, state, and also county public health officials, which are working for Johns Creek. It's not working in some of the other areas in Fulton County. Right now, it's working in Johns Creek. So I say we continue to do what we're doing and continue to be more vigilant if you can. But right now, just continue to do what we're doing, following CDC guidelines, being safe, taking care of our kids, and also making sure that we are practicing CDC guidelines or wherever, whenever we go out. I know the gyms and everything are still open. Some of us are still visiting those on a regular basis. Some people are wearing masks, some people are not, and that's personal choice. But right now, everything is working good, so I say continue to do what we're doing, and the numbers are continue to drop. Thank you.
Stay there, Brian. Now we're going to talk about the city centre. All the City Council seems to do is talk about a town centre, performing arts centre. Meanwhile, Sandy Springs, Duluth, Suwanee, Lawrenceville have created new venues, leaving Johns Creek behind. We need action soon or we'll never have success with these projects. How do you feel and what are your plans to address the proposed town centre?
As your next mayor, I can tell you I would definitely make sure we get a town center. Before I stepped down a few weeks ago, I was the town center liaison to City Council. And I can tell you that the people in the community want the town center, want the development, want to spend their money here in Johns Creek. They're tired of driving to Avalon, Alcyon, Peachtree Corners, Suwanee. They're tired of going to those places spending their money. They want to spend their money here in Johns Creek. So I think we can come up with a project, a development here in Johns Creek that we can all be proud of. It don't have to be Avalon, don't have to be Alcyon, but it could be something unique to here at Johns Creek that we can enjoy a family environment. Also with the Legacy Arts Center, I think that could be part of it. I think that will be one of the things that will make it vibrant, attractive, beautiful, something that we can enjoy, a musical, a play. All those things that we go other places, we can have it right here in Johns Creek and enjoy Johns Creek so we don't have to drive to Peachtree Corners and those other places and spend money. And that's what I will make sure. I will continue to pursue that by looking at different ways to develop it and making sure we get the job done because we've been talking about it long enough and it's time is out for talk. It's time for us to act and make sure we push this forward. Thank you.
The town center is something that my opponent and I have both the most common ground on and perhaps the biggest difference of opinion. I think we both agree that we should have a town center. I think we're both committed that there will be one. There are going to be two different flavors or two different phases. There is the town center that we can have, I think, a little bit easier through the land that we actually own, which is not a lot, but at the Linear Park and at City Hall, we, in combination, have about almost 25 to 30 acres. So that is going to happen. We will get started there. The question is, what will we be able to do beyond that? I personally would love to see us have a town green, and wouldn't it be wonderful if that's a place that we could have festivals, we could have concerts, you could have maybe different sporting engagements, whether it's high school football games played or even a professional cricket match. And then of course, we should have a community center that has a performing arts hall, performance hall, and wouldn't it be great if we could open up out to that town green? And of course, personally, I would love to see a Jumbotron or some big screen so that maybe I could have a slice of pizza and a beer and watch my Georgia Bulldogs play. But there's a lot that we could do. It's going to happen. But I want to make sure that it's unique, that it's vibrant, but it's also going to be to scale and that it's going to be within the character of our community. Now, my opponent, he said that he was the liaison. You know, the goal of the town center in my mind, and I think maybe in your mind, is twofold. That we should have economic development, it's a potential driver of economic development, and it's to benefit you with higher quality of life. My opponent has talked about that we need to add up to 12,000 new residents in this town center with high density housing. I think that that is something that could turn this from an asset and an amenity into a potential nightmare and overrun our infrastructure. We think that stormwater problems in Millette Bridge are bad now. What would it be like if we added 12,000 people and then look at the schools and the roads?
I'm letting you walk, but you're coming back, aren't you?
We are going to learn the pattern. More than I
All right, well, this is continuing along the theme of town centre. With the town centre plan calling for 48 units per acre, while the tech park node only calls for 16 units per acre, I see no plan to hold all the stormwater runoff on this location. This is not my question. How can you assure the residents downstream from this location who live in the following subdivisions: Creekside Crossing, Glenhurst, Stonehaven, Parsons Run, St Ives, Medlock Bridge, Doublegate, Cameron Forest, that the current erosion of trees, land and the silt deposits into the retention ponds will not get worse with such a plan?
So, like I just was talking about earlier, I think that if we are not careful, that this has the potential to make some problems in our community worse. I think that if we have the right balance, the right scale, I think that it could be quite a great place and something that we're all going to enjoy. I am not going to pretend that I know all the science, but simply that obviously if you're adding more impervious surface and you've got more water hitting that, you're going to have more volume, more velocity. So it is definitely a concern. I will be holding a town hall on Saturday at Newtown Park and invite all of you to come out. I'm going to be talking about, obviously we've done the stormwater utility, and that basically has increased the city responsibility to go from the right-of-way to head wall. And so it's great that we've started and we're making progress in that. But for so many of you, you're looking at, well, what about the conveyance that runs through my backyard where there's so much erosion that it's really dangerous? And that is going to be a very complex thing that I am going to be talking about a concept. I won't call it a solution because at this point it's simply a concept. But basically I want to figure out, obviously, how can we as a community get the value that is going to help pay for these improvements that are necessary, but without it necessarily going on the taxpayers of all of Johns Creek. In my mind, the way we do that is there would be value that is created for the individual property owner where the improvements occur. The question is, by what method could we bring that value out of the property and the improvement and get it back into the system to help fund the system? Now, that doesn't necessarily exactly answer your question, but I do take very seriously the impact that the town center and any of our road projects are going to have on stormwater. It's just a very complicated issue, and I'm not sure that I'm able to give a simple answer.
Okay, Brian, with the town centre plan calling for 48 units per acre, while the tech park node only calls for 16 units per acre, I see no plan to hold all the stormwater runoff on this location. How can you assure the residents downstream from this location, who live in that long list of neighbourhoods that I said, that the trees, land and silt deposits that go into the retention ponds right now will not get worse with such a plan?
Well, I can tell you as your next mayor, I would definitely be committed to stormwater. I was committed to stormwater when I was serving on city council. That is a big deal, not only for me, but other city council members and also the people here in the city. So that's why we got to have that balance. We got to have a balance of residential, commercial, and entertainment. But the main thing is we have money set aside in order to get stormwater and assessment. We hired 3 people back in July to do nothing but stormwater. And Tom has met them. Probably good friends of yours now, right? But yeah, these 3 people are supposed to be doing nothing but stormwater. And in the next few weeks, they're supposed to be giving us a report about what's going on in the city. But the town center would also be a focus. We have set aside money to make sure that we get this project off the ground and that we have stormwater monies available. And every time something is developed from now on, based on the stormwater ordinance, we will, when I say we, City Council, and me as your next mayor, will make sure that those developers do their part as far as taking care of their stormwater on their properties for the development, whatever they're doing. We're making sure that by hiring these individuals, Tom will be around, he'll make sure that it's taken care of. But at the same time, I mean, we're committed to this. We're all in this together. There's no easy fix. For 15 years, over 15 years, you know, the city didn't have a plan in place. Now we finally got a plan in place. Now it's just going to take some time for us to get the analytics back, get the assessment value back. How bad is it? We really don't know until we get the report back, but as your next mayor, I would definitely be committed to it.
There, Brian. Carrying on along that track related to the town centre. Since the Fulton County Board of Ed has zero plans to build more schools within the city of Johns Creek, and with a town centre plan of 48 units per acre, how do you maintain the quality of the schools that we have and the current class sizes?
Well, I mean, I think a few weeks ago we had the superintendent of Fulton County came to City Council and to say that they were looking at changing the format of the schools. And when I'm talking about, they were looking at making trying to eliminate the middle schools where it makes sense. So some of the middle schools in Fulton County, maybe in South Fulton County, or maybe here in North Fulton, will go away, some of the middle schools. And the elementary school will go from 1 through 8. So that's one thing that Fulton County is looking at now, and they brought the idea to City Council a few weeks ago. And that was when I was serving on council before I resigned. So all those things are on the table. As far as economic growth, population growth, Fulton County, they assess it on a yearly, annual basis. They have strategic plans, just like we have strategic plans, 3-year plans, 5-year plans, 10-year plans, and you look at the growth, and you base your budgets, you base your capital improvements on those analytics, on the information you're getting, on the information you're receiving. But yeah, Fulton County Schools will definitely be making some changes in the near future, and it was probably due to COVID maybe, and they haven't gotten everybody back. I think a lot of people are homeschooling their kids. A lot of them are going to private schools or smaller schools, and they're taking them out of the public school system. So some of these problems will work out themselves, and then others will have, Fulton County will be creative enough to deal with whatever situation they need to deal with. But right now, overpopulation, due to the pandemic and everything else been going on, is not an issue because a lot of kids just didn't come back to school.
$48 units per acre. 12,000 potential new residents proposed in high density for the town center. I don't understand how we can stand in front of you and not act like that's going to be a problem for the schools. The comprehensive land use plan has a much lower number of units per acre. My opponent in his campaign literature promises that he's going to abide by that comprehensive land use plan. So there's a conflict there. The schools do not proactively build new schools anticipating 12,000 new people. What they will do is they will see that the schools are massively overcrowded, and they will then react to that after the fact, after the trailers, after the quality of the schools has gone down. So, I mean, let's just be very clear about what we're talking about. And I'm not trying to, rain on a parade or anything. I'm looking forward to the town center, but it's got to have balance, or else it's not going to be a positive. It could very easily turn into something that we never anticipated. And so I'm not going to be for something that is going to be too intense, too many residents. I just want to make sure that we are going into this election with our eyes wide open. Thank you.
Okay, Jill. Come back.
I was just thinking that I'm going to be asking.
All right, this sounds like a traffic question, but it's not going to be. 141 and State Bridge are the worst traffic areas in the city. So what does the City Council do? They allow a zoning variance to allow Cameron Park subdivision and now the new State Bridge development to be developed by allowing zoning variances. At what point do you stay on the comprehensive land use plan and zoning laws and really regulate housing on State Bridge Road? I ask because the same thing is being attempted across from the Atlanta Athletic Club.
I know of no active proposal for the property across from the athletic club. I know that there was a proposal way back when for Bram Bank and to put in some apartments in high density there. That's actually the way I got involved in this whole process because I was president of my HOA. I lived down that way, and that was something that caused me to go to the first city meeting, and I haven't missed a city council meeting in 8 years. As far as the Providence Group and what happened over there across from Cameron Park, look, that started out at 9 units per acre, a fair amount of density. The council rejected that application. Behind the scenes, there were requests to kind of negotiate, like, hey, what if we only want to do 8? Then they came back at 7, and they came back at 6. When they came back at 5, we said, well, now we're interested. Because legally, Cameron Park across the street is at 5 units per acre. And so as much as I would love to be up here as Santa Claus, I've got to shoot straight with you, we had a legal responsibility to grant that application when it was at 5 units per acre. And I think that Ian Harriman and the Medlock Bridge HOA, I think that y'all did a very good job of working with the developer to make it better for your community, making it better for the rest of Johns Creek. My opponent, I will point out, when he was in a debate 2 years ago, he was asked if he had taken any money from developers that were in conflicts of interest. He said no. He had taken money from the Providence Group. And then we had those negotiations happening in executive session. There was no recusal. There was no mention of that conflict of interest. I do not take money from developers, and I prefer it that way because it keeps my life from being more complicated. So I just want you to know that when it comes to development, I'm going to try and do right by the residents.
I'll try and read it properly this time. 141 and State Bridge is the worst traffic area in the city. So what does the council do? They allow a zoning variance to allow Cameron Park subdivision and now the State Bridge development to be a subdivision by allowing a zoning variance. At what point do you stay to the comprehensive land use plan and zoning laws and really regulate housing on State Bridge Road? I ask this because the same thing is being attempted across from the athletic club.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with anything across from Athletic Club either. As far as what happened on State Bridge Road, yeah, there was, before I got on city council, apparently there was a development approved, and then one right across the street came up and filed an application, and apparently there was denied, and they sued the city. And apparently there was a piece of land in between the developed land and Medlock Bridge, and the negotiations began between Medlock Bridge and the development to make sure that it could be done, close the deal, and give them what they needed, and at the same time make sure that the land that was kind of landlocked here between Medlock Bridge and the other development was sold to the developer. So it kind of worked out for the whole community when it was all said and done, even though it had to go through some legal channels before, but Medlock Bridge ended up coming out on the good side to help negotiate with the developers, and developers got what they want. So in the end, it worked out for everybody. It didn't start off that way, but it ended that way. So.
Okay. Different topic. Can Johns Creek open a recycling centre like the one in Roswell?
Well, that's a good question. I've gotten a lot of questions about that being on the campaign trail. A lot of people are concerned about recycling environment, rightfully so. Right now, we're trying to get a recycling program just started with the city, at City Hall. It's something that's needed, something that we're looking into. And I think there are some contracts or some bids already been looked at by the city manager to decide. But the bottom line is, we don't have a place for it here in Johns Creek right now, or that place hasn't been identified. So that's the key issue, whether or not we come up with an agreement with one of the surrounding cities, whether it's Roswell, whether it's Sandy Springs, whether it's Alpharetta, whether it's Duluth, Swanee, whoever. It's something that we're looking at. I think it's something that's needed. And as your next mayor, I will make sure we pursue that, because we all have to be considerate of our environment and doing everything we can individually to protect our environment. I mean, this is our future, because if we don't do it, nobody else will. And it's not a good thing when you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing to protect your environment. So I would do everything I can as your mayor to make sure we're pursuing those agreements and making sure it happens, because I think it's doable. It just, at what cost, and have to be something we all can live with. So I would definitely pursue it and make it happen, because a lot of citizens are requesting it. I think we had a petition going around, and one lady I spoke with, she even started a petition with her daughter who was in high school trying to make it happen. So I would definitely support it.
I definitely support glass recycling, but I do think it's important that we look at it in terms of a more comprehensive sustainability program. I had a public policy proposal that I made, a presentation down at Ottery Mill Nature Preserve about sustainability. Talked about us becoming a Tree City USA, about us getting glass recycling in place, also about doing something that the ARC Green Communities certification process calls a kind of a free range. You get to explore your own advancement in sustainability. In that, I was suggesting that perhaps we could do a living proving ground for different environmental education concepts at Ottery Mill Nature Preserve. I think that'd be a great thing in addition to that park and for our community and for the kids. But I would like to see us get on the path to becoming a LEAF certified ARC green community. And that is something that I think we can do fairly soon. I would be proposing that upon becoming mayor. And then once we get certified as LEAF, that puts us automatically on the path to get bronze certified, and there are going to be more steps of that. As far as glass recycling specifically, I know that I had talked with Keep North Fulton Beautiful. They said that they would be open to helping us. I actually talked to the city. They said they could maybe provide it for free. When the city said, yes, we would love that, then they said, well, actually, there is going to be some expense. So it's kind of in a stalemate right now, but I do think that we will eventually figure out a place to have that. And it's not just a sustainability issue, it's also, I think, a convenience in providing a service from the city to the residents, because many of you want to recycle glass. If you're like me, it's almost like you have this obsessive compulsive desire to do it, but then they no longer are taking it. So it'd be nice if you didn't have to drive somewhere to recycle. Thank you.
Okay, John.
We're just so glad to be done with the question. We want to get back to the safety of our table.
This one is on safety. On any given day, you will see a police officer sitting on Skidaway Drive and State Bridge Road, monitoring speed and giving citations. Yet countless cars turn into Skidaway Drive and use excessive speeds in the subdivision, putting little children and children waiting for a bus in danger. An accident waiting to happen. As mayor, how would you direct the police to adopt better preventative measures rather than measures that bring in tickets and money to the city? For example, having the police sit on the cut-through streets, monitoring speeds and stopping, slowing down and warning drivers of the danger, since radar laser can't be used in subdivisions. What are your ideas on making the police more preventative than a reactive police force?
Lots to unpack there. A couple of things I want to point out. One, Johns Creek, unlike I think a lot of cities, we do not ask our police to ticket to advance a revenue goal. So do we get money if we pull someone over and give them a ticket? Absolutely. But the police are not instructed to try to get so many tickets, okay? So I personally appreciate that as a resident. The other thing, the question started out with the premise of what will you do as mayor to direct the police? So as mayor, I will definitely represent you, I will definitely go to bat for you, but I cannot direct staff or any city employees. The way that our city is designed by charter is that we have the elected officials and we set policy, and then of course you've got the staff. And so the nexus between those is between the mayor and the city manager. And so I would definitely communicate to the city manager these concerns, but I would not have the ability to actually direct the police. I will tell you that what we do in Johns Creek is listen to residents. And so this situation on Skidaway Drive, this is not something that I have been familiar with before, but it's something that I will be letting the city manager know about tonight or tomorrow. And those things actually do have an impact. So if all of you would let the city manager go through the Johns Creek Now, let your feelings known, let them know the things that you're observing. Because one of the things I do want to do in Johns Creek as mayor is I want to make sure that we are a city that does respond to resident concerns, and you are our eyes and ears, and that's something that I take very seriously. And they're telling me my time's almost up. On the way up here tonight, there was actually a police car that had pulled over a car, and I texted when I was hands-free. I texted the city manager just to let him know. I was like, hey, why is this car not being directed to get off the main road because it's snarling the traffic? That's the kind of thing I do all the time, but thank you.
Okay, Brian, so on any given day, you will see a police officer sitting on Skidaway Drive and State Bridge Road, monitoring speed and giving citations. Yet countless cars turn onto Skidaway Drive and use excessive speeds in the subdivision, putting little children and children waiting for a bus in danger, an accident waiting to happen. As mayor, how would you direct the police to adopt a better preventative measures rather than measures that bring in tickets and money to the city? For example, having the police sit on the cut-through streets, monitoring speeds and stopping, slowing down and warning drivers of the danger, since radar lasers can't be used in subdivisions. What are your ideas on making the police a preventative more than a reactive police force?
Well, as your next mayor, I would definitely not be directing the police. That's something you just don't do. What I can do is encourage our citizens to call and have any concerns they have, call it into our police chief. We have what we call community relations officers. Each one of the community relations officers are assigned to a certain neighborhood. So there should be some contact there. So as your mayor, I would make sure we are engaging the community and we have those officers in the community to hear those type of complaints to make sure they are addressed, because each one of the community relations officers have assigned areas and they should be in those neighborhoods, listening to the residents and dealing with whatever complaints that they have in order to resolve them. So it should never be a situation where your mayor gets involved. It should always be handled on a line level between the neighborhood officers and the supervisors on that different shift. So I would just encourage our community to continue to call and contact the police about any concerns they have in the neighborhood about speeding or whatever, in order to address those concerns and make sure they're resolved, because